alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to our Tafseer class. We are doing the kitab known as Al-Jami'u li Ahkam al-Qur'an of Imam Al-Qurtubi rahimahullah, which is better known as Tafseer Al-Qurtubi. We're doing the Tafseer still of Surah Al-Takwir, and we are busy with the at least I should say we're continuing on from last week where we were doing ayah number 15 and number 16. فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالْخُنَّسِ الْجَوَارِ الْكُنَّسِ. And we touched upon a number of opinions as to what the ayah is referring to, what exactly Allah is taking an oath upon. But anyway, we're continuing on from that point, inshallah, from the top of page 110. So let's begin. Bismillah walhamdulillahi wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. So as you remember from last week, the rough translation, the rough translation, as I said, is فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالْخُنَّسِ. So I take an oath by the stars, the retreating stars, al-Jawari al-Kunnas, those that run their courses and disappear. That was the rough translation I had given. We touched on the tafsir, which gave stars, planets, like wild bugs and different things, animals and stuff like this here, all that the word, khunnas, al-Jawar al-Kunnas, what it can refer to. We're continuing on from this point here from the statement of Imam al-Qushayri rahimahullah. So Imam al-Qushayri rahimahullah said, وقيل على هذا الخنس من الخنس في الأنف وهو تأخر الأرنبة وقصر القصبة وأنوف البقر والظباء خنس والأصل الحمل على النجوم لذكر الليل والصبح بعد هذا فذكر النجوم أليق بذلك. So Imam al-Qushayri rahimahullah, he says that it's been said with regards to al-khunnas. Khuns, he says it is taken from the word, which we did the viewpoint last week, which is like a flat sunken type nose, the unuful baqar, the noses of the bucks and cows and things of the sort. But he says the asal, what is the viewpoint Imam al-Qushayri rahimahullah himself is inclined towards? He's inclined towards saying that al-khunnas in the ayah is referring to the stars. He says the reason for this is because after this Allah starts speaking about the night and the day. So if you're following the context, you don't change from wild bucks to being day and night. Planets and stars and stuff like this, they still have a connection with day and night more than wild bucks. So therefore, he feels even though linguistically the word can be applied to wild bucks and wild cow, which, like I said, is not a cow per se, but it's those all those addax, as it's known in the dictionary. It's those type of animals. But he say because of the fact that the sun and day and night being mentioned, it fits better to say that, and this is in fact the preponderant viewpoint amongst the Mufassirin, that it refers to the stars. Planets, stars, choose what you want to go with. It's synonyms at the end of the day. Anyway, now Imam Al-Qurtubi rahimahullah himself comments. He says, قلت لله أن يقسم بما شاء من مخلوقاته من حيوان وجماد وإن لم يعلم وجه الحكمة في ذلك. The statement of Imam Al-Qurtubi rahimahullah, it summarizes everything in the best form. He says that Allah has the right to take an oath by whatever He wishes of His creation, whether they are animals, whether they are inanimate objects, even if we are unable to understand the wisdom behind it. Allah can take an oath by it, even if we don't understand it. If Allah takes an oath by an addax, and Allah takes an oath by a star, and Allah takes an oath by a planet, we don't need to know what the wisdom is. Allah knows what it is, and it is for us to simply accept it. So that is, if you want to really talk about, some people are like, but why? Why is an oath taken by, for example, you're talking about an addax, or you're talking about a wildebeest or a blesbok or a springbok or whatever type of animal? Why? People like to ask why. Sometimes we don't exactly have all the answers. Allah did not tell us why. So if it refers to that, then Allah has all the right in the world to take an oath by it. Like Allah takes an oath, وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَى وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا تَجَلَّى. Allah takes an oath by many different creations of Allah. So if Allah wants to take it by this or by that, Allah has all the right in the world to do so. It's not that, no, it can't be by an edX, because what's the benefit? We don't even see an edX around. Why would it be an edX? We say no. If Allah took an oath by it, then Allah took an oath by it, and we hear and we obey. That's it. End of story. No debate, no need to discuss it further. End of story. He says وقد جاء عن ابن مسعود وجابر بن عبد الله رضي الله عنهما وهما صحابيان والنخعي أنها بقر الوحش. He says it's narrated from Hazrat Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, who is the faqih of the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum as a whole, and as well reported from Hazrat Jabir ibn Abdullah radiyallahu anhuma as well, and both of them were Sahaba. It's also reported from Imam Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, who all held the opinion that the khunnas is referring to Baqar al-Wahsh, which we did last week, that wild animal, that addax. So he says, Sahaba radiallahu anhum held this viewpoint. So it's not like it's some far-fetched thing. How can it be this? Sahaba radiallahu anhum understood the Qur'an in Arabic better than us. So if they felt that due to linguistics it's referring to this, then who are we to come and say, no, it can't be this? We say, if it is like that, then so be it. In the wisdom of it, Allah knows best. He goes further. He says, وعن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما وسعيد بن جبير أنه أها الظباء. He says, Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma and Imam Sa'id ibn Jubair, they said that it is a dhiba, which is now like a wild buck. He says, وعن الحجاج بن منذر قال سألت جابر بن زيد عن الجواري الكنس فقال الظباء والبقر فلا يبعد أن يكون المراد النجوم. He says, Imam Hajjaj ibn Munzir, he said, I asked Jabir ibn Zayd with regards to al-Jawari al-Kunnas. So he said, it is that wild, what do you call these things now? Buck and addax and those type of creatures those type of animals. So he says, فَلَا يَبْعُدُ. So it's nothing far-fetched to say that the intended meaning is it's the stars. So if Allah wanted to take an oath by the stars, by all means. And if Allah wanted to take an oath by the animals, by all means. It is the right of Allah to take an oath by whatever He wishes. He says, وَقَدْ قِيلَ إِنَّهَا الْمَلَائِكَةِ. Now we come to another new opinion over here, which we did not do last week. حكاه الماوردي. والكنس الغيب مأخوذة من الكناس وهو كناس الوحش الذي يختفي فيه. He says another opinion is that this ayah, Allah is taking an oath by the malaika, those angels, and Imam al-Mawardi rahimahullah is the one who holds this opinion. Why is this? He says, well, kunnas al-jawar al-kunnas. Kunnas, as he says, is here al-ghuyab, that which is hidden. Malaika themselves are hidden from our sight. So Allah is taking an oath by the malaika. This is now what our fifth or sixth different opinion that we have for this word here. He says it's the kunnas is taken from the word kinas. Kinas is when one of these bucks and wild animals of this sort, when they disappear from sight to take refuge and hide away from people. So, in other words, boiling down to the fact that it is something which is not seen in public. So, likewise, malaika are not seen by us. قال أوس بن حجر ألم ترى أن الله أنزل مزنة وعفر الظباء في الكناس تقمعوا. We always tend to skip the poetry because the poetry is only here to show from a linguistic perspective that the word can be used in a particular fashion. وقال طرفة كأن كناسي ضالة يكنفانها وأطرقسي تحت صلب مؤيد. وقيل الكنوس أن تأوي إلى مكانسها وهي المواضع التي تأوي إليها الوحش والظباء. Same thing, he says al-kunus, which is kunnas, kinas, all the words we've been doing previously. He says kunus is to take refuge to the place where you hide away in. So he says al-mawadi', it is those places which those wild animals take refuge in. And which we did last week happens to be like caves and things of the sort where they disappear, they run away when people come near and they take refuge somewhere. So, those who happen to be near caves and mountains and stuff like this here, they go inside there so you can't find them. قال الأعشى فلما أتينا الحي أطلع أنس كما أطلعت تحت المكانس ربربوا. يقال طلع النهار ارتفع وأطلعت الظبية من كناسها أي سمت بجيرها. Yeah, سمت بجيرها. Okay, he says طلع النهار ارتفع, like okay, that's طلع البدر علينا والطاء, but طلع النهار means that the sun has risen. وأطلعت الظبية, you know, the word ظبية is, you know, people talk about Abu Dhabi when they talk about the country, it's actually Abu Dhabi. This is the actual, this word you see in front of you here is what obviously minus the tamarbuta, but it's this word here that the country is named after, and people just tend to read it as Abu Dhabi, but it's actually a va. But anyway, but he's speaking about a vabia, which is that wild buck, which, you know, when it comes out from its place of hiding. Okay. وقال امرؤ القيس تعشى قليلا ثم أنحى ظلوفه يثير التراب عن مبيت ومكنسي. Okay, moving on, he says والكنس والكنس جمع كانس وكانسة وكذا الخنس جمع خانس وخانسة والجواري جمع جارية من جرى يجري. Okay, he's just showing linguistically that kunnas, kunnas is a plural form of kanis. Kanis masculine, kanisa feminine, and kunnas is plural. He says likewise khunnas is khanis is singular masculine, khanisa is singular feminine, and khunnas is plural for it. And jawari is plural of jariya, jariyatun, jawari. So that's a famous word anyway, something which you know, al-ma'u jari, you know, water which flows. So that which runs, flows, you know, jariya is separate when you're talking about a young girl. But anyway, that's a different topic all of its own. But anyway, let's move on further. So that's finally the end of the tafsir. Like I say, in conclusion, al-khunnas al-jawari al-kunnas, whether we say it refers to the planets, whether we say it refers to the stars, whether we say it refers to the malaika, whether we say it refers to the addict, whether we say it refers to the wild bucks, whatever it may be, there are multiple interpretations. The most preponderant one is that it refers to the stars. Which stars? Amongst the stars, the most common one being the actually planets, not stars, which is Mercury, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn. I said not Uranus, Pluto, and Planet X, and any other ones they want to come out with. These ones which are closest to the sun together with Earth, these 5 main ones. But anyway, so those are the bulk of the opinions. Whichever one you take, there's no harm in it. But the preponderant view, like I say, is that of the stars. Hence why when you heard me do the verbatim type translation, I mentioned that of the stars. But in any case, let's move on now further. In the next ayah, now ayah number 17, Allah says, Allah takes another oath. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا عَسَعَسَ وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا عَسَعَسَ. And here we're going to come to a number of opinions once again. So, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا عَسَعَسَ. General translation is, and Allah takes an oath by the night as it closes in. By the night when it closes in. قال الفراء أجمع المفسرون على أن معنى عسعس أدبر حكاه الجوهري وقال بعض أصحابنا أنه إذا دنا من أوله وأظلم وكذلك السحاب إذا دنا من الأرض. So he says, Imam al-Farra, one of the linguists, he says that the Mufassirun have ijma' that the meaning of as'as is adbara, which disappears, which moves out. In other words, dissipates rather than closes in. When it leaves rather than closes in. This is one opinion. So he says that the Mufassirin have ijma'. They have ijma' that this is one of the viewpoints, not that, don't get the wrong idea and think that he says this ijma', therefore boom, it only means that, which means the translation I just gave now was wrong. Not quite. So anyway, this is mentioned by Imam al-Jawhari. He says some of our companions mention, when he say companions, he means the ulama obviously, أنه إذا دنا من أوله وأظلم. So he says some of our companions, they say that asas means إذا دنا, when it comes min awwalihi, when it comes close from its beginning time. In other words, when it closes in, when it just begins, contrary to when it is leaving and dissipating. So min awwalihi wa azlama. And he says likewise the clouds idha dana min al-ard, when the clouds come close to the earth. So He's just showing linguistically about the word as'as. But anyway, moving on now into the various other opinions. He says, Imam al-Mahdawi, he says, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا عَسْعَسْ. He says, أَدْبَرَ بِظَلَامِهِ عن ابن عباس ومجاهد وغيرهما. The opinion that it refers to when the darkness leaves. In other words, the sun, it's close to dawn now. That time when the darkness is starting to disappear. He says, this is reported from Hadrat Abdullah ibn Abbas, from Imam Mujahid, and others as well. وروي عنه أيضا وعن الحسن وغيره أقبل بظلامه. Another opinion also reported from Hadrat Abdullah ibn Abbas, also reported from Imam Mujahid, and also reported from Imam Hassan and others. They said أقبل بظلامه, the entire opposite, that the وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا عَسْعَسْ is Allah taking an oath by the night when it closes in. Imam Zayd ibn Aslam, he says عَسَعَسَ ذَهَبَ. He holds the opinion now again, explaining linguistically that عَسَعَسَ means also to go. In other words, when it leaves. So we've got two things here. When the night sets in, when the night leaves. Both of these are valid translations and meanings for this ayah of the Qur'an. But anyway, you'll see it now shortly. الفراء العرب تقول عسعس الليل وسعسع إذا لم يبق منه إلا اليسير. Imam al-Farra, he says the Arabs say عسعس الليل وسعسع. Back to front anyway. He says when the Arabs make the statement, they use it in the sense that when it refers to that time when there is nothing left of something except a little bit. In other words, when the time is leaving. In other words, when the night is disappearing and the day is starting to come in. That's what he's trying to prove linguistically from this word. But he says, Imam al-Khalil وغيره عسعس الليل إذا أقبل أو أدبر. Imam al-Khalil, he says that عسعس, this word is used whether the night is coming in or whether the night is going out. So both ways. Therefore, like I said, whichever tafsir you want to take, both are linguistically accurate. So if you would say that Allah is taking an oath by the night as it sets in, or Allah taking an oath by the night as it leaves, both of these are linguistically accurate as far as the Arabic language is concerned. Imam al-Mubarrid said, هو من الأضداد والمعنيان يرجعان إلى شيء واحد وهو ابتداء الظلام في أوله وإدباره في آخره. Now Imam al-Mubarrid, he said that this word عسعس, it is from the أضداد, you know, those which are, I wouldn't call it contradictory, but it's double meaning words, which means it can mean both sides. In the sense, he says, well, both meanings are returning back to the same thing. He says, ibtida'u al-zalami fi awwalihi, the beginning darkness as it begins, meaning when it sets in. Wa idbaruhu fi akhirihi, and it as it leaves towards the end. So the coming and the going of the night, both of them are linguistically accurate using the word asas in Arabic. وقال علقمة بن قرط حتى إذا الصبح لها تنفس وانجاب عنها ليلها وعسعس. وقال رؤبة يا هند ما أسرع ما تعسعس من بعد ما كان فتنسرعرع. وهذه حجة الفراء. Okay, he says that anyway, this is the proof Imam al-Farra uses for his view, quoting these poems. Because why quoting poems the whole time? The reason is because, as I already mentioned, these poems are poems of Jahiliyyah, and the poems of Jahiliyyah used to be like the foundation of Arabic. There was no books of Nahu and Sarf. Medina Arabic course, Ilm al-Sarf, Ilm al-Sigha, Nahu Mir, you know, there wasn't such books of the sort. So therefore, how was the Arabic language preserved? The Arabic language primarily was preserved through the knowledge that the people had, and the backup used to be the poems that existed. And the Arabs prided themselves on poetry. Therefore, the people of nobility, they knew their poetry. So they could quote poetry. You may feel it silly, it don't even have a meaning in reality, you know, but the way that the poem was used shows that this is the way the Arabic language was used. So a lot of the time, the Qur'an and certain things were justified using the poetry, because sometimes, and I mentioned this before in the past, we know it even in English, there are tons of English words that we don't know because it's just not in vogue in our, in our vocabulary. that doesn't mean it's not part of the English language. So you come across a word and you don't know what it means, but it's still Arabic. So you go to a dictionary and you say, oh, okay, this is what it means. Likewise in Arabic, and we see this time and again in the seerah when an ayah would come and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum used to ask. For example, hadith comes to mind, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam speaking about wahan, and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum ask, Mal wahanu ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam? What is wahan, O Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam? And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam goes on to explain, Hubbu dunya wa karahiyatul maut. It is love for this world and a detestation for death, and so on and so forth. So there were often occasions when words were used, Arabic words, but it was not in vogue. The usage was not in vogue. As a result, there were a need to find out what exactly does this mean, because it's not in their daily usage. So it's like people using the dictionaries was to go to the Bedouins and those type of people who who are known as like the hierarchy where the usage of these high Arabic words were used, and they would now be able to show that the word is used like this because of this poem and that poem, and that's how the dictionaries of the age was used. In any case, let's move on. It says, وقال امرؤ القيس عسى عسى حتى لو يشاء أدنا كان لنا من ناره مقبس. فهذا يدل على الدنو. So the Imru al-Qais, one of the poets, he uses this poem here to show that asa shows is used in the meaning here of something coming near. So one uses a poem to show it's something which goes away, and the other one uses a poem to show that it's coming near. And as it was mentioned earlier, the word has got both meanings within it. So coming near, going away, both are established linguistically for this word. وقال الحسن ومجاهد عسى عسى أظلم. Now Imam Hassan and Imam Mujahid, they take slightly different. They say, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا عَسَى عَسَى. If I were to translate it using their tafseer, they would then say, and by the night when it darkens. Not when it closes in, but when it darkens. So darkens is when it closes in, so whichever you will call it 6, call it half a dozen, at the end of the day it boils down to the same thing. قال الشاعر حتى إذا ما ليلهن عسى عسى ركبنا من حد الظلام حندسا. Okay, let's move on. He says Al-Mawardi, Imam Al-Mawardi says وأصل العسي عسي الامتلاء ومنه قيل للقدح الكبير عس لامتلائه بما فيه فانطلق على إقبال الليل لابتداء امتلائه وانطلق على إدباره لانتهاء امتلائه وانطلق على ظلامه لاستكمال امتلائه. Okay, so Imam al-Mawardi says the root and the source of the word as, like as, it means fully, to be filled. He says because of this you will find it said with regards to a cup, which a big cup, usun. You call a big cup usun. Why? Limtilaihi bima fihi, because of what it is filled with inside. Call it a big cup, your bottomless cup of coffee if you want to. So فانطلق على إقبال الليل, so it is used, for example, for the coming of the night, لابتداء امتلائه, because of it beginning filling it up. Filling what? Filling the sky with darkness. So basically closing in. وانطلق على إدباره لانتهاء امتلائه, and it's used also for when the night is leaving. Why? Because of ending its filling. You got your bottomless cup of coffee. So think of it here, you got your cup of coffee, of your cup at least. Then somebody comes and they pour your cup full, and then you drink the cup up. So it went from a state of emptiness to fullness to emptiness. So the coming in of the coffee, the going out of the coffee, that's basically what they're using here, just in the case of the filling of the cup at least. So he says وَانْطَلَقَ عَلَى ظَلَامِهِ, and it's also used with regard to the darkness, because because the darkness is when it fills. In other words, when you've poured that cup to the brim, you filled it. So when the darkness has set in fully, then the sky is all dark. if you are following what they're trying to say from this linguistics. He says, وَأَمَّا قَوْلُ امْرِئِ الْقَيْسِ أَلِمَّا عَلَى رَبِعِ الْقَدِيمِ بِعِسْعَسَ فموضع بالبادية وعسعس أيضا اسم رجل قال الراجز وعسعس نعم الفتى تبياه. Okay, he says Isasa is a place in the Badia. Badia means they're out in the in the outskirts where the Bedouins then live. So he says, and Asas is also the name of a man. A man's name can be Asas. He says, like how you find in the poem, Asasun. And Asas is Ni'am al-Fata. You know, what a good youngster. He's the best of youngsters. So he's just simply showing all the different meanings and how the word Asas can be used. Okay, let's move on a little bit before our time runs out. Let's at least finish this last two paragraphs over here. He says, أي تعتمده ويقال للذئب العسعس والعسعاس والعساس لأنه يعس بالليل ويطلب ويقال للقنادف العساعس لكثرة ترددها بالليل. وقال أبو عمرو والتعسعس الشم وأنشد كمنخر الذئب إذا تعسعس وتعسعس أيضا طلب الصيد بالليل. Okay, that's the last point. We'll read until and complete at least. So the last tafsir is giving now for asas. He says that with regard ta'tamiduhu, something which is like i'timad, as we would say, you know, what depend or at least if resting upon, if you were to take it like that, but using it literally goes on to live a wolf. It's said with it's, or at least I should say, a wolf is called al-asas. So another meaning of asas is a wolf. Why? Or at least asas, asas, and asas, all three ways like this, all refers to a wolf. Which is the reason for it, he says, is because of لأنه يعس بالليل ويطلب, because a wolf goes out at night, hunts, he comes for your sheep there basically, and whatever else is going out to hunt and eat and kill and whatever he want to do there in the night. That's basically what he's trying to point out. Yeah. Okay, anyway. So he says, it said with regards to al-qanadifa, al-asa'is, different to al-asa'as. He says, لِكَثْرَةِ تَرَدُّدِهَا بِاللَّيْلِ, because of how often it happens, it repeats itself at night. And Imam Abu Amr, he says, ta'as'us refers to smelling. And he quoted the poem, كَمَنْخَرِ الذِّئْبِ إِذَا تَعَسَعَسَ, like the nostrils of a wolf when he smells. But then he says, وَالتَّعَسُعُسُ أَيْضًا طَلَبُ الصَّيْدِ بِاللَّيْلِ. Ta'as'us is also used to meaning following up your prey, that your animal that you are hunting at night. So all in all, the whole point being here, we've done a number of different opinions: the night setting in, the night leaving out, the night becoming fully dark, because obviously we know we're talking about the night. So we're not going to, the rest of these things about the wolves and the dust and the smelling and and all these other things is just to show linguistically. The ayah doesn't now change to, and I'm taking an oath by the night, or what the wolf who hunts at night. It's not referring to that. It's just simply showing how the word asa'as is used for these sort of things, which is to show something which slips in, something which comes at the beginning, something which leaves at the ending, and things of the sort. So the time when exactly this is taking place, Asas is pointing that out. So we know the ayah, Allah is taking an oath by the night, but what time of the night? That is where the difference is coming in. And that is where all these linguistics are being found as to what time of the night is Allah taking an oath with exactly. Is Allah taking an oath with the beginning of the night? Is Allah taking an oath with the middle of the night? Is Allah taking an oath with the ending of the night? Simply put, the ayah would encompass all three of these things on account of the fact that linguistically all three can be used. So to summarize it, that's basically what I would be saying. And yeah, Zoom has given us the notice that we're running out of time. So we stop on this point here, inshallah, on page 113. And okay, maybe next week, inshallah ta'ala, if we manage to do this next one page and something, we can complete this few ayat that we had read last time. And then in the next class, we will finally reach the final portion to complete the surah. So inshallah ta'ala, we stop then on this point here until next time. We end and we say, wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad, subhanallahi wa bihamdihi, subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.